Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday, and you know what that means. It is time for another two-tire change with Big Rich here on the Driving to the Top network. And it was a very interesting race weekend in Atlanta. Capped off with the Better Health 400 last night or yesterday, started off, ended yesterday evening. Lots to get into about that race today. Again, if you have questions, if you have comments, please hit me up on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it this week at Go Big, Go Home Pod, or on Facebook, just my name, Rich Richardson, or hit me up right here on our Driving to the Top Productions page. Definitely would love to have a conversation with you, answer any questions you might have about the race. Diving in to the truck race, starting off Friday night with the truck race. Uh, Kyle Busch, Cup driver, comes into trucks. He has the most wins in the history of the truck series. Gets the win. Really, really tight finish with Stuart Friesen. No surprise to anybody on that one. As here lately, the finishes in Atlanta have been really, really close, and this one was just that. Kyle Busch in first, Stuart Friesen second, Tyler Ankrum third with an absolutely ripped up car. I don't know how he ended up getting all the way up to third. Bailey Curry in fourth, Chandler Smith fifth, Caden Honeycutt sixth, Ben Rhodes seventh, Ty Majeski, his teammate, in eighth, Jake Garcia in ninth, and Grant Enfinger in 10th. Frankie Muniz, the former actor, current actor, I guess, uh, after his top 10 finish at Daytona, finished in 26th. A couple other one other Cup driver, Michael McDowell, was also in the race. He finished in 12th. So a fun race Friday in the Craftsman Truck Series, and that's the last race they're going to have until March the 14th. So we have 3 weeks with no truck series. They'll pick it back up again in Atlanta. Uh, Xfinity Series. I'll give you three guesses. For those of you that have followed the Craftsman Truck Series in Atlanta, I'll give you three guesses who won the race. First two don't count. Austin Hill continues his dominance at Atlanta, brings that 21 car across. Justin Allgaier second. Eric Almirola comes in third. I honestly thought Almirola was going to win the thing, the way they came through those last couple of laps. Sammy Smith fourth. Nick Sanchez, who just came up from the Truck Series to the Xfinity Series this season, comes in fifth. Jeb Burton comes in sixth. Daniel Dye seventh. Leland Honeyman eighth. William Sawalich ninth. Harrison Burton in 10th. You saw a lot of really good cars get involved in wrecks. Sheldon Creed ends up 14th. Jesse Love 16th. Ryan Sieg 20th. Parker Retzlaff 27th. Christian Eckes 29th. Sam Mayer 36th. It was not. It was one of those races. It seemed to me, anyway. It really was more of that Daytona run and feel than either the Cup race or the truck race. Um, when you sit and you think about it, you're looking at the race and you're running similar style of race on a 1.5 mile track instead of a 2.5 mile track. You're running the same type of style, that nose to tail pack racing, 2-3 wide, side drafting, bump drafting, things of that nature. And here we go. It got really dicey there for a while. And like I say, the Xfinity race to me had more excitement to it than the Cup or the truck race. That's just me. Then we get to Sunday's race in Atlanta. Um, and it was interesting to say the least. Again, close. at the end. Um, the problem, well, one of the problems, I'm not a Christian Bell guy. I will say that from the very jump of this thing. I'm just not a Christian Bell guy, never have. Um, and the bad part is I want to pull for Joe Gibbs. Okay. The bad part is now he really doesn't have hardly any drivers I can pull for. He's got Christian Bell, who I'm not a big fan of. He's got Chase Briscoe now, who I've never been a fan of. Ty Gibbs is okay, but he cries too much. It's just there's not a lot there to pull for at Joe Gibbs Racing. Um, Gone are the days of Bobby Labonte, Martin Truex, guys of that ilk. And no, I was never a Tony Stewart fan either. That's a given. I was never a Tony Stewart fan. He was just below Earnhardt in terms of my not non fandom. So, Josh, I appreciate you hopping in. I took Ryan Blaney. I really thought he was going to be able to pull this thing off, and he just about did. But you ended up with there we go. We end up with Christopher Bell in first, Carson Hocevar second. Race finishes under yellow, and we'll get into the details of the race here in just a minute. Kyle Larson third, Blaney in fourth. Had run strong all day. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. fifth, only because he caused two wrecks. Sixth was Denny Hamlin. Seventh, Kyle Busch. Eighth, Ross Chastain. Ninth, Bubba Wallace. 10th, John Hunter Nemechek. Another really good finish for Nemechek. Another race where a lot of big names with tore up cars in the back of the standings. Brad Keselowski, dead last, 39th. Uh, Daniel Suarez, the winner of last year's race, 33rd. William Byron, 27th. Austin Bowman, Alex Bowman, 26th. Shane Van Gisbergen, 23rd. Chase Elliott, 20th. So you had a lot of big name guys in the back of the pack, which is not good, but there are guys. I'm seeing more and more now, and I have been a fan of what a couple of guys are doing, and we'll get into it a little bit later after we get done recapping the race and the points standings as we sit. But realistically, stage one was fine. There was nothing. There were no yellows, nothing. Josh Berry wins stage one in the Wood Brothers 21 car. Cindric second, Byron third, Bubba Wallace fourth, Elliott fifth, Tyler Reddick sixth, Todd Gilliland seventh, Ryan Blaney eighth, Hocevar in ninth, and Joey Logano in 10th. Logano ends up in front for the start of stage two after the pit stops. Ty Dillon brings out the first caution after he spun, cut down a tire. There were several cut tires during the course of the race, and he has to get a push from the tow truck. And then Eric Jones goes around, slaps the inside wall, and he was in bad. His car was in pretty bad shape. But he ended up getting back out there. Logano stays in the lead. Todd Gilliland cut down a tire, running in third. And then there's a caution flag because of debris. A ton of cars stayed out, but there were a bunch that came in as well. More or less playing the gas conservation game there for a minute. Then Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski wreck after Elliott gets squeezed into the wall by Stenhouse. First wreck of the day that Ricky Stenhouse causes. Corey LaJoie also gets banged up in this deal. Just Stenhouse is one of those guys. Him and Austin Dillon. And I would be really interested to see if anybody actually keeps up with this stuff. But I firmly believe Ricky Stenhouse and Austin Dillon cause more wrecks than anybody else on that circuit. I firmly believe it. Chase Elliott ends up coming back out later on in the race, picks up some laps, ends up finishing 20th. Kyle Larson wins stage 2. Wallace second, Logano third, Byron fourth, Reddick fifth, Bowman sixth, Hocevar seventh, Stenhouse eighth, Cindric ninth, and Noah Gragson 10th in stage 2. So strategy goes through again with the pit stops. Ross Chastain stays out, and he is in the lead to start the third stage. Daniel Suarez, Ty Gibbs, Todd Gilliland, Cole Custer, Noah Gragson, a bunch of guys get into this 7th caution. This wreck that causes it. Guys bouncing around all over the place. And that was one of those just victim of circumstance kind of things. I think it was just a case that the drafting and the way guys were moving, one guy bounced into the other one, and then it just started everything. So you have a lot of, again, good cars getting torn up, but at the same time, you still got very competitive racing going on because they're still drafting. We've got guys coming back out and all that kind of good stuff. The next thing that happens, though, come back off the restart. William Byron's in front. Chris Buescher spins. He spins after Chase Briscoe goes off the wall. Then Buescher collects Alex Bowman. Chase Elliott gets back on the lead lap. So now Elliott, in a semi-tore up car that has had the steering wheel reset, is in first place. So Ty Gibbs ended up spinning on the backstretch. His car was in bad shape to start with, and his car is about cooked at that point. Kyle Busch starts out, gets up in front. He and Josh Berry are going back and forth. You get to lap 230, and Berry's leading Cindric. You got 30 laps left. Blaney spins off of turn 1. And he had to have had a tire go down. It didn't look like it when he came into the pit, but he had to have cut a tire because there was nobody close enough to him to cause him to spin. And Ryan Blaney's one of those guys. He's not going to spin unless he has a reason to spin. Get back into lap 242. Austin Cindric starts out as the leader. Josh Berry is right there. Larson, Hocevar, all up in the very front. We've got 18 laps left in the race, and with the new tires that he got after that wreck, here comes Ryan Blaney. If this race was 3 laps longer, Ryan Blaney would have won it hands down. Blaney gets himself back into the top 10 with 7 laps left. And then you have a wreck that I think Austin Cindric, by the way, is third on the list that we were just talking about a little bit ago. Drives me crazy, especially when he collects my guy. Collects William Byron. Cindric, goes and Larson blocks Cindric. Cindric goes off the outside wall, takes Byron with him. They both hit the inside wall, and they're both done. I really honestly think Byron was about to win that race. He was drafting with his teammate Kyle Larson, who, by the way, had a fantastic finish for one of the few times on a super speedway. He does not do well in drafting races. This race he did. But Byron and Cindric kiss the inside wall. Both of them's day is over. So then you get into the last lap. Josh Berry, Joey Logano crash in turn 3 behind the leaders. At the moment of the caution, Christopher Bell was about a half car ahead of Carson Hocevar and Kyle Larson as all 3 guys were going to the finish line. in a three wide setup that realistically was about to become very similar to last year's race, where you had Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, and Daniel Suarez. But with the yellow coming out, we didn't get the chance to see that ultra close finishing in. Hocevar ends up second, as I said, Larson in third, Blaney in fourth, and Ricky Stenhouse ends up in fifth. I'm going to talk a little about Carson Hocevar on those last couple of laps, and throughout the race, but on those last lap, Hocevar is bump drafting Christopher Bell, bump drafting a couple other guys. He's not exactly Mr. Finesse when it comes to bump drafting. And he is that guy that's not afraid, if he sees an opening, to go through it. And I use the similarity to the guy that used to drive the 24 car named Jeff Gordon. Jeff would do the exact same thing, and people gave him all kinds of crap for being aggressive like that. There is a difference between aggressiveness and stupidity. Kyle Busch was mad at him. Ross Chastain was mad at him. Ryan Blaney was mad at him. I'm sure Christopher Bell was probably slightly mad at him, but he won the race, so quit crying. But when you sit there and you look at what Carson Hocevar, now he's in his second season, he was a rookie last year. The way that he drives, and especially if Kyle Busch wants to be crying about it, it's the exact same way Kyle Busch did when he first started, with one big difference. Hocevar is not wrecking people. Hocevar is going through a hole that's there. It may not be there as he gets halfway through the hole, but he's sticking his nose in that hole. Kyle Busch just ran people over, spun them around. So do a lot of these other guys. But there's that difference. Noah Gragson was catching a lot of stuff for that last year too, that he was trying to be a little bit more aggressive. That's what you have to do on these tracks, especially on these super speedways. If you want to just hang around in the back of the pack all day, that's great. If you want to be happy with a 25th finish, fine. That's on you. But if you got a chance to win especially your first race, because this would have been Hocevar's first win, and he would have had a legit shot, it's, if it's there, you got to go for it. And I don't care, any successful driver, whether it's Cup, IndyCar, it's different with open wheel because you can't make that contact. You can't be bumping those tires against each other, and those open wheels really going to have issues. But you get the guys that have been super successful, the Jeff Gordons, the Dale Earnhardts, the Richard Pettys, the David Pearsons, the Junior Johnsons, the Tony Stewarts, the Jimmy Johnsons, Kyle Larsons. The list goes on and on and on. You've got to take advantage when there's an opening there, especially at a super speedway. It's a lot different when you're running Bristol or Martinsville than it is when you're running Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, Texas, whatever. You have to take advantage of those holes opening up. And when the holes open up, you close them. If someone decides they're going to come down after you've already started taking that spot, that's on them, not on you. So, do you have to be careful with it? Sure, of course. You don't want to cause wrecks. But if you have the chance to move forward, you take the chance to move forward, especially when it's close to the end of the race. When he did what he did there at the end, there were 3 laps left in the race. You're going for the win. Checkers or wreckers at that point. And, he ends up getting his best ever finish at second. Um, I said in one of the preview shows that I thought Carson Hocevar was one of the guys that I thought would win his first race this year, and I still believe that. I think Hocevar does. I think Gregson does, and I think Josh Berry. They all win their first race in Cup this season. But too many people are getting high, and especially when it's someone like Kyle Busch that's getting upset with Hocevar. You could see the conversation they were having yesterday, which I do give Kyle Busch full credit. You could see he was not old school Kyle Busch, where he would have started a fight right there off the jump. They were talking. It was more like a coaching kind of a thing. And Hocevar has got to take that information and process it, because a lot of these guys are trying to coach him. He is, again, a second year guy. But he's also got to drive aggressively when he has the chance. That was my biggest problem with William Byron at the beginning. The biggest problem I had with William Byron his first couple of years was that he was driving like he had absolutely no guts. He was driving like a sissy. And that's not going to work for two reasons. It ain't going to work in the 24 car, and it ain't going to work for Rick Hendrick Motorsports. Sorry, not happening. And I know, like I know my name, 2 years ago during the off season, him and Jeff Gordon had a come to Jesus meeting that basically went something like this, that Jeff was saying, look, there is a legacy on that 24 car of winning, of doing things that get you into victory lane, that win championships. If you're not going to do it, I'll find somebody that will. Basically planted his foot in William Byron's butt. And we've seen the last 2 years what has happened. Byron contended for the championship last year, made it to the championship 4. This year, he wins Daytona again. Had a realistic shot to win yesterday, and is going to be a contender for the championship again this year. It's a matter of the outlook. There's a difference between driving stupid and driving aggressive. Some guys drive stupid. See Ricky Stenhouse, see Austin Dillon, to a small degree, see Austin Cindric. Then there's those guys that drive aggressive. Much as I hate to admit it, see Kyle Busch, see Carson Hocevar. Martin Truex drove aggressively, but he also drove smart. There's a massive difference in the two. So if you're going to get mad that somebody wrecked your favorite driver, or that somebody did something that caused a wreck that wrecked your favorite driver, before you get super upset, you've got to go back and look at it and go, okay, wait a minute. Was he being aggressive or was he being stupid? If he was being aggressive, it's a victim of circumstance. It's what they call a racing thing. Now, if he was being stupid, that's a whole other ballgame. You get someone being stupid and causes a wreck and wipes out 20 cars at a super speedway, okay. Every right in the world to be upset, and every right in the world to come after the guy and that kind of stuff. But no. So, yes, Hocevar was very aggressive in what he was doing. I completely stand behind him on that. And I hope that he keeps doing it, because I know, like I'm sitting here, this man is going to win a race before this season is over. The standings after 2 races in the Truck Series: Grant Enfinger with 85 points, Ty Majeski 84, Chandler Smith with 79, Corey Heim 69, and Ben Rhodes with 66. The guaranteed ends, it's just Corey Heim and Yeah, it's just Corey Heim with the guarantee because Kyle Busch is not running for points in the Truck Series with that win he had on Friday. So you don't have, or on Saturday, I'm sorry, you don't have that win there for him. So the only lock right now is Corey Heim, but your point leaders, Enfinger, Majeski, Smith, and Rhodes outside of that. In the Xfinity Series, your excuse me, your two drivers with wins, Austin Hill, of course, and Jesse Love are at the top, so they're locked into the playoffs. Then you've got Sheldon Creed at the top of the points list, along with Justin Allgaier, Jeb Burton, Harrison Burton, Jeremy Clements, Sam Mayer, Carson Kvapil, and Matt DiBenedetto. Yes, Jeb Burton and Harrison Burton are related. They are cousins. Um, they're part of the Burton family. Ward and Jeff Burton, who ran for many, many years in the 90s and the early 80s, 90s, early 2000s. But that's your standings in the Xfinity Series. And then your points, or your standings, excuse me, in the Cup Series. Of course, the two wins go to Christopher Bell and William Byron, so they're already locked in. And then it's Ryan Blaney at 87 points, Tyler Reddick, Austin Cindric, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson, John Hunter Nemechek, Ricky Stenhouse, and Alex Bowman with Chase Elliott right outside of that group. So a lot of guys up in there that are very familiar and have been there for a while. You're used to seeing them up there. But then you get a guy like John Hunter Nemechek having a great start to his second season in Cup. Very happy for him. He's another guy that the way he's racing right now and with the way Toyota is racing right now, he may end up in the winner before it's all said and done. Um, there's a lot of guys out there this year. I think we're going to see for the first time in a while, nobody gets in on points in the Cup Series. Nobody gets in on points. You're going to have 16 or more different winners. Having 17 or 18 makes it even crazier because then it's not only the win, but then it's the points on top of the win, and it turns into chaos, which, a lot of people like that kind of stuff. Me personally, I like the point system that they had, um, where you get rewarded for performance. You get your points for how you raced. The most consistent driver, along with being the best driver, gets you the championship. But all that being said, when you sit here and you look at what the standings look like right now, and then you think about where the NASCAR Cup Series and the Xfinity Series are going this week, you go, because William Byron is really good on road tracks. Tyler Reddick, very good on short tracks. Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, guys like Austin Cindric. They're going to Circuit of the Americas, the short course this time, not the long course, but the short course at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, this coming weekend, about 100 miles down the road from where I sit here in Waco. And COTA's cool. Been there, been around the track, haven't driven the track, but been around the track. Super cool facility. And I tell you what, I'm glad they're running the short track, but this is also one of those races that you got your gunners in this one. Obviously, Shane Van Gisbergen is the first one that you look at. But, you also look at these guys that consistently run really well on road courses. Daniel Suarez is definitely one of them. AJ Allmendinger, Michael McDowell, William Byron, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, really all the Hendrick guys. There's a group of about 10 or 11 guys. Ryan Blaney's another one too, that always seem to run really well on road courses. And then there's a group of guys that just struggle. They may do fine in the very beginning, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, stage 3, here we go. We got to hit those turns perfectly. Turning left, turning, got to hit those marks perfectly. They just don't do it. And when they don't do it, they more than pay for it. And it shows up in the results. There's a couple of guys though that people are going to have to watch out for. One of which, and of course, he is a not full time uh, racer this year, but I believe he is running at COTA. Is Jimmy Johnson? Uh, Jimmy's very strong on the road courses. Kyle Busch is also very good on the road courses. It would be kind of funny if he got his first win in over a year at a road course. It would be kind of funny simply because, yeah, he's more well known for running the ovals, but he can handle the road courses. But another guy that just came up to the Cup Series this year is Zane Smith. Zane Smith started running with Front Row Motorsports. He's running in the 38 car. When Zane Smith was running the road courses in the lower levels, he did extremely well. And I think that he could be a guy that if people aren't watching out, he could end up with a really good finish. Can he win the race? Probably not. Would I pick him on my DraftKings? Absolutely. If I'm doing my daily fantasy with these guys and I can fit Zane Smith into the salary, yes, absolutely. No doubt. No questions about it. I do have those guys that I've got to take. Um, so it's definitely a deal that you got to and in fact I'm looking at them as we're talking, but you've got when you look at the road course specialists, it makes a big difference when you're doing your fantasy. Um, just because they know that a guy like Michael McDowell, who was 7,100 last week, you're not going to put him at 7,100 this week. That's just not happening. And they're saying it's too early to look at the lineup. So, but I can promise you, a guy like a Michael McDowell will be up there. A guy like a Justin Haley will be up there. In terms of cost this week, does that mean that none of these other guys have got a chance of doing anything in this race? No. You also have to look at a lot of these guys realize, the guys that aren't very good at certain tracks, they know they're not very good. They know what their strong suit is. They know what their weak suit is. Some of them are much stronger on super speedway or intermediate courses than they are on short tracks. Some are short track specialists and are better than they are at super speedways. There aren't that many that are really good at all of them. And there's guys that are road course specialists. There are more than what there used to be. It used to be in Cup Series, you had maybe half a dozen guys that you could bank on. One of those guys was going to win the race, unless something just absolutely crazy happened. You had Marcos Ambrose, you had Jeff Gordon, you had Rusty Wallace. You had those guys, Robbie Gordon, guys like that. Or you had those ringers that would come in, like a Boris Said or somebody like that. That doesn't happen anymore. You don't bring in ringers. There's just not enough seats. So what's going to end up happening this week? And I firmly believe what's going to end up happening this week is you're going to see about 10 or 12 guys that when it comes down to those last 10 laps. But you got to remember, 10 laps on a road course is a whole lot different than 10 laps on an oval. Lots more turns, lots more places for things to change, you know. The short, I'm trying to remember the exact length, 2.3 miles, but 20 turns. You get down to those last 10 laps, that's 200 turns. And one wrong move, if you've ever watched a road race, I don't care if it's IndyCar, Formula One, whatever. If you've ever watched a road course race, you know every turn can make a difference. You cut the turn bad, you can bet there's going to be a guy passing you. So, you get down to those last 10 laps, that's 200 chances to make a mistake. And that's what's going to separate the winners from the losers in this particular case. I like the track. I'm not the biggest fan of the road course racing. And I think it's more because you don't see very much close racing. I like the super speedway stuff. I like the intermediate stuff if it's competitive. I love short track. But see, for the longest time, I hated Pocono. And I kind of still do. Because if you separate at Pocono, it's over. If you separate at Pocono, it's done. You're going to sit there and just watch these guys run that triangle, 200 times in a 500-mile race. And those are the races that you can sit there and fall asleep at. They've changed the track at Pocono a little bit so it can be more competitive. They've done a similar thing to Michigan, and that makes a difference. I like the fact that they're running, the variety of courses because that makes a difference in the grand scheme of things. You want to prove that you're the best across the board. Now, granted, or like I said before, not everybody is going to be great at all four. That doesn't happen very often. I mean, those are guys that are the upper echelon of drivers. Dale Earnhardt was not a good road course, and he would be the first one to admit it. He hated road courses. He said so, and he was not good at it until probably the last 5 years of his career. Absolutely hated those courses. Then you turn around, you get a guy like a Marcos Ambrose who had a nice career on the road courses, couldn't win on an oval on a bet. But when they went to Watkins Glen, when they went to Sonoma, he was one of those guys that you could bank on was going to be up front. You have guys, there have been some. Tony Stewart was one of them. Jeff Gordon was one of them. That was extremely strong on all of the courses. Matt Kenseth was really strong on all types of courses. Kyle Larson is that way. And I know a lot of people are like, would you quit talking about Kyle Larson? Okay, when he starts to suck, I'll quit talking about Kyle Larson. How about that? And that's not going to happen anytime soon. I've been a Kyle Larson fan since he was running for Penske in the 42 car. I'm sorry, for not Penske, but Chip Ganassi, Ganassi Racing. In the 42 car, he did something stupid as a young guy. Had some issues. Rick Hendrick brought him in. You've seen what's happened since he's been with Hendrick Motorsports. But when you're looking at what's going to go on this coming weekend, and I'm kind of disappointed there's no trucks at the road course. I think the trucks are more entertaining on the road course from a handling standpoint. than Xfinity and Cup because those cars are balanced. Those trucks ain't balanced. They're just not. You look at the structure of them; they're not. So you get them on those road courses, making those quick turns and all that kind of deal. You not only have to manage the turn, you have to manage your car, your vehicle as well, um, which makes a pretty good size difference. So when we look at the race this coming week, it's very tough to not take a guy like Shane Van Gisbergen. Um, do I think he's going to do well? Of course, unless he wrecks, of course. Um, I think William Byron does well. I think Kyle Larson does well. I think AJ Allmendinger is going to do well. And honestly, that's who I'm picking to win this race next Sunday is AJ Allmendinger in the 16 car. Um, he he has won a number of races, as a cup driver on road courses. That's kind of his forte too. I firmly believe that this is going to be AJ's race. Um, would I be shocked if Van Gisbergen won? No, of course not. Would I be shocked if Byron won? Of course not. But what I can tell you is this, and it's a very important thing to remember. You never count out those guys that came up on these road courses. And that's what AJ Allmendinger did. So my personal pick for this week's race is AJ Allmendinger. Um, if you have a dark horse, if you're putting a fantasy lineup together and you're looking for one of those guys that's not going to be quite as expensive, not a Michael McDowell or an AJ Allmendinger or a Daniel Suarez, you could probably, I'll tell you what, I would ride the hot hand, even though it's a road course. I would see what John Hunter Nemechek is looking like. I would definitely look at Eric Jones. And like I said earlier, Zane Smith in that 38 car. Those are three guys that if you're putting a lineup together for DraftKings or for FanDuel or whatever your daily fantasy of choice is, any one of those three guys, I think you're going to get a really nice result out of them that will help with pulling your salary bank down so that you can grab two or three of those guys in the very top and grab one of those El Cheapos, maybe even two of those guys so that you can get three or four big names and have that chance to really, really have a quality lineup this week. It's going to be fun. It really is. The Xfinity race on Saturday, the cars, the Cup cars will be out there on Sunday in Austin, Texas. It's not supposed to be super hot. It's supposed to be in the 80s in Austin this weekend, so it'll be nice, comfortable for the guys. I know a couple years ago when they ran, it was like 97. I can't even imagine. I don't care. They put all those ice packs and all that kind of stuff, and they have the water flow system in the suits and all that. I don't care. It's got to be 150 degrees in that car, and I these are tougher guys than you think, folks. These are tougher guys than you think. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun to see. Definitely appreciate everyone that has been listening, watching the broadcast this evening. Again, please hit me up. It's either on Twitter at Go Big Go Home Pod, Facebook under my name, Rich Richardson, or right here on Driving to the Top Productions YouTube channel. And hit us up with your questions. Hit us up with your thoughts, your opinions. If there's something you would like for me to add to the broadcast, something that you don't like, let me know. Definitely want your opinions, want your questions, and definitely want this to be an interactive program. We're having a great time with it, and I think it's going to be a very cool program as the season goes on. But Josh, I appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, and we definitely will have to have you pop your head back in here in the very near future. But until next week, when we talk about COTA, and that should be really a fun race to talk about. But until next week, when we talk about COTA, my name is Big Rich. We enjoy doing this show for you. Please let us know what you think, and we hope that you enjoy the show. Until next week, so long, everybody.